Hello, everybody. Welcome back to How to Chess. I'm your host, Michael.
And this is William.
Today, we're going to teach you three very basic and simple checkmates for beginners. So, starting off, here we have king and rook. So, what you want to do and how the checkmate actually happens is this black king will get pushed to the center, from the center of the board to the edge of the board. And it's going to get blocked off by our white king. And the checkmate will actually be dealt by the rook. So the best way to start this off is cut off the squares from the king. So that way the king only has access to these squares and these squares. Now, the king's going to keep walking in those squares, and if we check him with our rook, he's just going to go down. So in this case, we should just bring our king up. The king's going to keep moving. If he moves back, just move your rook up. You want to restrict the space as much as possible. If the king moves, bring your king closer. If he moves back, bring your rook up. It's just rinse and repeat. Now, when you're in this case, what you want to do is don't put your king in opposition. You want to put your king slightly off of that opposition to where there'd be a knight jumps distance away. Now, if the king moves to the side, just follow. King moves to the side again, just follow. Now, if you lose the rook, you're a dumbass, so move the rook to the other side of the board. Now, the king's going to move back, and here, I don't want my opposition. I want black to make the opposition. So we'll make a waiting move with the rook to either force the king into opposition like this. Now, these three squares are blocked by our king. Therefore, we can just check with our rook, and the king is forced to the back rank. Now, I don't want any opposition here, so we're going to keep going like that. Move the rook to the other side of the board, play the waiting move, and now we just follow our king. Eventually, the king is going to be forced to get in opposition to ours, and that's when we'll deliver our checkmate. Not now, though, because we don't want the king escape. So keep following, and after king b8, it's forced checkmate.
Okay, we're moving on to the second checkmate. So the second checkmate, we're going to start off with the queen and the king. This checkmate is pretty similar to the last checkmate, except instead of a rook, you have a queen. So you're going to have to be a lot more cautious of whether you stalemate or not. Okay. And what you want to do, first thing you want to do now is make sure that when you move the queen, which is the first thing you're going to move, is knight's distance away from your opposition's king. So let's just move this to f6. That was knight's distance away from the king, but now that the king moved, it's not. So when the king moves left and right, we're going to just move our king up towards this king, just like we did in the first checkmate. And if it moves back, we're just going to move the queen back as well. Okay, so now the king did move back, so we're going to make sure that the queen is knight's distance away. And we're just going to put the queen right here. Now we just keep on pushing our king up, closer to the other king. And now in this position right here, it's a lot easier than the first checkmate. We can just take the queen and place it in front of the king. Checkmate.
The third checkmate we'll be teaching you is the ladder checkmate. So this checkmate involves two rooks, a rook or a queen, or two queens. And what happens is you're pushing the king to the edge of the board, where both queens or rooks will block any access to any other moves, and it'll be checkmate. So the easiest way to do this is to put the rooks next to each other, but in kind of like a cross diagonal. Now, no matter what the king does, you're just going to move your rook up by one. Eventually, you'll notice that the motion the rooks create looks kind of like a ladder, which is what gives this checkmate the name. So move the king up by 1. Now, what happens is, if the king gets close enough to attack your rook, you don't just lose the rook. You move the rook to the other side of the board. Same thing. If I were to move the rook up 2, it would just get taken. So I'll move him to the other side of the board, to b3. This one, honestly, anyone can do it. You just move the rooks up. Once again, move the rooks to the edge of the board, where they won't be taken. Now, the reason you don't move your rooks on the same column is because what happens is, they're kind of blocking each other's paths. And if you want to get your rook to that g8 square for checkmate, you'd have to put it on g6. And just like that, you know your 3 basic checkmates.
And now we can finally checkmate with the king and the rook.